Thank you very much, dear Chair. On the data 2020 from the Pension Fund of Turkmenistan shows a rise in the share of female adults with disabilities. During the COVID pandemic, a number of adults with disabilities lost their jobs. At the same time, the employment rates among them were already unfairly represented. Percentage of working men is twice as high as that of women, 20 and 10% respectively. We say about the disabled women and girls. It was noted that women with disabilities or mothers or children with disabilities experience emotional stress. Based on the survey results which happened in your country, around 6% of children with disabilities are often under the state of emotional stress, helplessness, loss or interest, apathy, feeling of loss and heart griefs. I do not want to go to the regional, what's happening in Ashgabat, what's happening in Balkan Vilayet, it's different situations. What about refugee and asylum-seeking women? Education, health and social services. Is it accessible? And if it's accessible, how many women and girls, refugee and asylum-seeking women and girls, get accessibility to these unpaid services, especially state services? Another point about the rural woman. This paradox stems from the exchanging environment and mindsets in urban and rural environment. In rural areas, women account for most home farm works and unpaid household workers, where widespread home farming and leasing of agriculture land results in the use of women and children as unpaid labor. I do not go to the statistic data what we have in this points from agricultural employment, comparing men and women, especially when we see that women much more, including such kind of unpaid work. But at the same time, I have several questions. One more point about the discrimination against LGBTI women, especially. What's the relation of the state government, party, state situation, especially on the protection of the LGBTI women in these cases and accessibility to this state service at the same time? What about the questions of the international marriage questions, inter-ethnicity marriage questions in your community? We won't just clarify the real situation, what's happening in your country. Women of, for example, of Jewish descent, what's happening with the marriage with the Turkmen people in your country. Just clarification for how it's happening, how many marriages do you have? Do you have any discrimination? I do not want to give myself answers. I want that state delegation will clear this information about the position, especially what's happening, especially between the internally till the marriage situation between the ethnicities and nationals in the Turkmenistan and what's happening afterwards. Questions. Women and girls with disabilities access to the state services. Promote the social inclusion and inclusive education of women and girls. How it's happening. Do you have the statistic of disabled girls which had accessibility to the education especially? Do you have statistic of disabled girls which are victims of the violence, any kind of violence, not just the domestic? I say about the sexual violence, for example, at the same time. One more point about how did the state party support rural women accessibility to the desert territories? Because we know that most of the territory of Turkmenistan is under the desert situation, and it's difficult to work in the agricultural structures there, because it's a very difficult situation. You have many natural barriers in this point. How did the state fight against this situation and create for the women and girls in the special rural such kind of situations? And one more time, I want to thank all delegation members for open and solid answers during the dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sabro.